Hi and welcome to Mike's V8 Garage. This time I'm ticking off a lot of small jobs on my XKR. So if you've been following this channel for a while, you'll know that I've done a fair amount of pretty hefty work on the XKR already. So that started out with the engine being rebuilt. Next, I moved on to the suspension, which is the last video I've just done there. And then the job that it's just come back from now is to have the ABS unit rebuilt, which had failed. I think it was the circuit board and one of the solenoids inside had failed. I can't do that because I don't have JAG diagnostics and I can't rebuild ABS units. So that went off to a specialist, and the ABS unit went off to another specialist and got rebuilt. That was about £800, which is a fair amount, but a new one from JAG is just under 2,000 with the VAT. And it took a lot of time to dig up this one company that could rebuild them, and indeed did. And if anyone in the audience is having issues getting an X150 XK or XKR ABS unit rebuilt, drop me a comment down below and I'll quite happily pass you on the details of this company, because as I said, there's not many people that do them. But anyway, that was in, fitted, sorted, the car's running again, it's just passed its MOT. But in the background to that, I've been ticking off a lot of other little jobs that have been needing doing, that have been bugging me for a while, but I've just not had the time to do while I've been doing the Lexus. Now the first job I got stuck into after all of this work had been done was getting the alloys sorted. The existing set of 20s that were on there were quite scabby and patchy. They'd had an argument with several curbs and just weren't looking their best. The centre caps were done and they just needed a good tidy up. Now I know what I said in my previous video that I'll be sticking a set of 18s on, but they themselves also need refurbished, and I'd actually already sent the 20s off to be refurbished before I decided to fit the 18s. That was one of the reasons I put the 18s on, as I think I said in the last video. So the 18s were on temporarily, the 20s went off to be refurbed. They're now back and on the car and looking decent, and the 18s are now laid up just waiting to be refurbished themselves, and then they'll go on. And that'll leave me with two decent sets of alloys for this car, and I've got that freedom then to swap between the two as and how I feel like it. The next thing I moved on to was the headlights. Now previously they'd had a paint protection film applied, which had over time delaminated, gone a bit dodgy and started peeling. So I had to strip all that away, which took a long time and also didn't leave the headlights in great state underneath it. There was glue residue, and also because of the exposure of the headlight material to the sun again, they started quickly turning yellow too, which didn't help. So they were letting down the whole look of the car on the outside, and something needed to be done about them. Process is pretty simple: mask them up, wet sand them with 1 in 2,000 grit, polish them and then clear coat. So, and that's exactly what I did. So first step of that was masking up, ready for wet sanding. Okay, so taped up, and first thing we'll do is just some 1200 wet and dry. Shouldn't take much. As you can see, the residue that's coming off here is largely clear, so I don't need to do a massive amount of sanding on this one. What I'm mainly doing is making sure the residue of the sort of PPF cover that was on there before is fully removed before I start polishing. So I don't need to be too aggressive, just give it a light scuff up. I go over with some 2000 and then we're ready to polish. And I'd say that's good enough. Now to move to the 2000. Unfortunately there's some water staining inside the lens, which I'm not going to be able to do anything about now, but if it starts to bother me I can always just replace the lenses, as I'm going to do on the Lexus. I'll leave that there and get to polishing. inside the lens that I'm not going to be able to get to no matter what I do. And I don't want to keep on going because it will eventually start to mar the plastic. But I think if you look at them before on that side and after on this side, and this is before I ceramic coat it, I think that's pretty good. Right, so that's the first one done. Didn't take too long. I've just ceramic coated it. Looks pretty good. Just got to do this one now, which is a bit more yellowed and has a bit more deeper scratches. So I'll probably spend a bit longer with the 1200 before moving to the 2000. Okay, so that's the IPA dried off, headlights are nice and clean. Ceramic coat, and again I'm using Armour Shield 9, usual thing, applicator pad. Pre-soak the pad and apply. It's just a case of waiting a minute in this heat and wipe off. And that is me done. Big improvement. As I said, new lenses would be the ultimate improvement, but they're expensive. I'm not even sure you can get them for Jaguars. I think you have to buy new headlights. Go figure. That's definitely good enough. And that ceramic coat should see it last a good year, a couple of years. And as I said, I put it on fairly thick. So, definite improvement, as you can tell from the after shots. So as you can see, the end result of that is pretty good. Yes, as I said, there's still some stains and marks inside the lenses, and I need to pop them off to get at those, and I'm not even sure they can be sorted, but the overall result there is really good and totally lifts the outside of the car. So while the wheels are away getting refurbished, I'm going to use the access that gives me to refurbish the brake clips and the rear brake caliper plates. As you can see there, they're meant to have the R emblem on them, and these are new ones that I bought only a few years ago and installed because my previous ones had done exactly what these have done. And you can see how the R's just faded, and I'm not sure quite what material it is or how they put it on, but brake dust, brake cleaner, and just general abuse of being driven doesn't seem to do him much of a favour. And you can see the rears especially have just basically vanished. So the intention is having removed them, which is pretty simple, because all you need is a screwdriver under the base of these, pop them up, decent broad one tends to work well, and then a T25 Torx to get these little bolts out for the back, although beware, if they are the original ones, these are steel bolts and it's an aluminium caliper, so therefore a galvanic reaction will make that incredibly fun for you. These ones came out quite easily because I copper greased them before I put them in. As I said, I got them out before, but that's only after I had an absolute epic getting them out the first time round. So just a top tip there. But the way I've decided to refurbish them is first I'm going to strip them all down, I'll paint them, and then I'm going to use vinyl decals. All I need to do now though is start stripping these down and ready to paint. And after a very quick bit of sanding with some 800 grit dry, it's ready to go on this side. So it's a little while later. I've got all of them now stripped down. I went a little bit overboard with the first two, but really all I need to do is get rid of the existing decals and key the surface for the next layer of paint. So the next thing I've got to do is give them a good wipe down with IPA, isopropyl alcohol, just to get any last remnants of crud out of there. And that is them ready for paint. Now it's a warmer night than when I last did paint, so I've not had to heat up the can or anything. It's all pretty much ready to go. I've got the little bolts for the rear clips off as well, because they might as well get a single coat just to keep them roughly in keeping. But now all I need to do is just give a light coat over both of them. So I don't need to be particularly precise, this isn't a set of calipers or anything. So that'll probably do for the bolts. I don't want them to get clogged with paint. And then just a couple of quick layers again on the clips and plates, but not too much. And I think that will probably do us for the first coat. And now all we need to do is give that a good 10 minutes or so, and then I'll be applying a second coat, and then I'm going to leave it to cure for 7 days, apply the vinyl, and then apply the lacquer over the top, and it should adhere and bond quite nicely. Right, so it's a little bit later, and as I said before, these almost the right size for the rears, almost the right size for the fronts, but a bit too tall. Those ridiculous, so got a refund on those, and got these instead, which are exactly the right measurements and indeed have the correct colour green on them as well, whereas as you compare it to these, you can hopefully see it there, these are a lot lighter and it's not the correct green. And I've already had a test fit and that looks pretty good. So all I need to do now is just do the 3 others. I was going to lacquer, I've decided not to now because these are meant to be chemical resistant, and to be honest, it's simple enough just to rub down repaint and reapply, whereas trying to take off lacquer as well is just going to be a pain. So I'm just going to put them on as is, which should be as simple as, I'll do on the fronts now. Quick rough placement. They've been rubbed down with isopropyl alcohol as well, and it's just a case of carefully peeling back. There we go, the backing. Positioning them, if you're more organised, unlike me, you'd have maybe used rulers or some way of doing it, but I'm just going to eyeball it because I forgot to bring a ruler. But generally eyeballing it, you get it pretty much bang on, and that looks pretty good to me. So I'm just going to lay it, give it a good bit of pressure just to make sure the transfer adheres, and then peel off. Bingo. So you add that to the, where are we? The rear I've already done. That is a perfectly acceptable alternative. So another 2 to do, and then back on they go. So the end result, and they're all fitted and in and looking good. That's one of the rears, and then the fronts likewise, and they've been washed several times already. This is a little bit later, and they're all holding up fine. So no issues whatsoever. Really easy to do, and the results just lift the car. At the same time, I also got new alloy wheel centre caps in, which is about 50 flipping quid, but hey, it's got a Jaguar badge on it. But again, that combined with the refurbished wheels has just totally lifted the outside of this car. And on that note, the next thing I'm looking at doing is fixing that broken rear light lens cluster. So I'm going to get onto that now. Now fixing that broken light's pretty simple. I've got a good used spare here. What I do need to do though, you may not be able to see it, but there's some discoloration where sort of mould and crud is just built up in that little gap there. Unfortunately, what you can't do is break these apart easily. They're all bonded together, so I'd have to break the unit to separate it. So what I'm planning on doing is just jet washing or using high pressure air and soap and so on, just blasting that through, drying it all out, sealing that up again with some, I don't know, epoxy or something similar, giving it a polish on the outside and then fitting it. So I'll get all of that done off screen because it's fairly self-evident, and then we'll move on to fitting. So that's the light all nice and cleaned, and just like a flash we're going to replace the cracked one, and now it's looking quite decent. All that was 3 10mm plastic nuts, taking out a bit of trim, one clip, all done. Nice and simple. So with that rear light fitted, that was cosmetically everything ticked off, and the one thing I was able to move on to after that was the exhaust. Now if you remember from the drive and review video I did for this car, the exhaust that's fitted is still the standard one up to the cats. The cats themselves are sports cats, which are much higher flow and just suit what I've done to the engine. What they do as well though is make the engine extremely loud, and especially when the valves in the rear exhaust box, which actuate above around about 3,000, 3,500 revs, I misremember which. But what they do is effectively open up, as you look in the diagram here, those outer channels on the exhaust, which effectively turn the whole system into a straight pipe, with only some of the exhaust going through that S-bend, series of S-bends inside the silencer and coming out the inner set of tailpipes. So inner is the fully silenced route, outer is effectively a straight pipe. And when those valves open at 3,500, when you've got a set of sports cats on, the noise is, let's just say, not nice, and I'll show you an example now. And now, here's what it sounds like every time you put your foot down. Which is quite loud. While everyone likes a good V8 engine noise, that noise is pretty obnoxious and it's not actually nice either. So I've been racking my brains for a while on what to do to solve it. The initial plan had been to get a custom exhaust system made up, but when I was underneath the car for something unrelated, I did have a look at that system. And what I realised when I looked under the car was not only were those exhaust valves controlled by actuators that were easily accessible, I wondered what would happen if I just effectively tied them so that they were permanently closed, and thereby shutting out this whole straight pipe setup here and forcing it to go through the silencer box there. And that's my light just gone. Never mind. So what I'm going to do now is just take that armature that you can see there out, and then it's difficult to see, but there's a little actuated bit there which, as you can see, sorry, dodgy cameraing, as you can see, moves in and out to actuate the valve, which you can hear squeaking away. So I'm going to cable tie the valve closed, take that actuator out so the car can't control it, and see what happens. And although it's difficult to see, that's the valve now cable tied closed. What I'll also do is remove fuse 19 so the whole system's deactivated and it's not trying to move that armature, because as you can see it's held in by the cable ties. Let's see how much of an effect this has. And now, this time, listen to what it's done to the full bore acceleration. Now that is a big improvement. So as you can see, quite a few little jobs ticked off there, and overall it's been really productive just getting that car finally up to a decent standard, both cosmetically and most importantly sounding right as well, before Christmas. However, there's still two faults that need to be tackled. Firstly, the driver's side heated seat doesn't work. More importantly, I've also got a fault in the pedestrian protection system. So again, that will be done when the weather gets a bit better. The other job we've got to do next year for this car is getting those 18-inch alloys refurbed. That's probably more of a summer job once I've built up some money. But that should then be this car absolutely sorted in every respect, which will be the first time in a long time I've been able to say that, and I'm quite looking forward to it. So this will be the last video I put out this year, and it'll probably miss Christmas by the time I've finished editing, so happy Christmas retrospectively. But also to those who've watched through all of this year and last year, Happy New Year, and thanks for helping grow this channel. It's grown a lot more than I ever thought it would, but thank you for that to all of you watching it. It's appreciated. I do read all the comments and I do respond to all those I can understand, and it really is rewarding considering the amount of effort and time put into this, and thank you therefore for that. So all it remains to say is, if you did like the video, please consider liking down below. It does help with the YouTube analytics. Comment, because they are all read and responded to, and consider subscribing if this is the sort of thing you like. And to tease a little bit of next year, while I can't promise any Mustang action because that thing is stuck in body shop purgatory, there will be more on this. I've just gone on what I'm doing on the XKR. There's plenty planned for the Lexus, and then there's also another project car which I've got at work as something to do during the week when I'm there, which will come out in due course. I'm still busy digging into that one, more to follow on that. But overall, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the new year.